I don't really think that immigrants take jobs away from natives. I think instead they're doing the jobs that natives don't really want to do anymore. I think this has been apparent since like the mid 20th century in the UK, really. You look at people who work in kind of restaurants, bars, most of them are immigrants. But in the 60s, people who drove buses in London were also immigrants, and it seems a trend that's continuing, and I don't think that many people are too worried by it. I think immigrants really add to the culture of the country in which they settle. I don't think it's any way kind of negative. You look at London today, every sort of religion, culture, country is kind of represented. And all the time there's different festivals, events going on that everyone takes part in, and it just makes the place a little more vibrant, colourful, and with more kind of immigrants in the country and sharing their culture, everyone kind of learns about each other, and ultimately it leads to a better understanding of everyone around the world. When you look at crime and immigrants, the statistics do say that immigrants commit more crime, but I think you have to look beyond that and see what are the reasons why they're committing crime. And it tends to just be that they're trying to survive, and they don't have any money, they don't have any support, and we need to kind of look at how we can prevent that happening instead of just kind of labelling all immigrants as criminals, because not all immigrants are. It's mainly a minority, in the same way that most criminals in any country are a minority. And it's just a way of kind of educating them, and sometimes it is just a matter of kind of educating them on the rules and the laws of the land, and once they know about them, I'm sure that many will think about things differently, because maybe from where they're from, that was how it was acceptable to do that sort of thing. So yeah, I think the statistics say yes, but I think there's more to it than that. I don't really think that immigrants put that much of a strain on the welfare system themselves. I think it's we, as a country, and the way that the UK is run, kind of offer them the ability to become a strain. I think many people come here knowing that they'll get support from the UK government, whereas if they went to some other countries in Europe, they wouldn't get that same support. So perhaps we need to kind of think, well, maybe we shouldn't be offering this level of support, but I don't think we should stop immigrants coming here. I think we should just make it clear that if you do come here, you have to kind of be aware that you do have to work or contribute to society to gain something back out of it. It's not like a one-way flow. We give, but you don't give in return. I don't think that immigrants will ever become a threat to society. If you look at just the way that the world has kind of developed, it's always been about kind of migrants, immigrants going to different countries, settling there and kind of developing the country. And I think immigrants just make a place better. They bring about change. I mean, I myself am from an immigrant background. My parents are immigrants, and I found myself kind of being part of this change process, and especially at my generation, to go into a kind of a classroom or a university where everyone was the same religion, the same kind of race, would be strange. And if I go somewhere like that, I find it completely strange. So I think it's a great thing for society, and I don't think anyone should ever think that it's not going to be anything other than beneficial to everyone. I think it's difficult to say what cultures and customs immigrants should kind of keep, and to what level they should kind of mix with the country they go into's cultures. I think it all boils down to, I think sometimes laws of the country are different from sort of the culture, and as long as you abide by the laws and are a good citizen, then it doesn't really matter what cultural attributes you bring. And it is all about learning from other people. Maybe the culture of the UK will be influenced, or even has been influenced by other cultures around the world from that people bring here, and it kind of works both ways. So I don't really think that you can say don't bring your customs or your cultures, because if you take those things away from immigrants, that's when problems arise and tensions start brewing. But if you let them kind of develop and you kind of accept them, but also encourage them to take part in the native cultures as well, I think you have a much more healthy society that way. I think with regards to kind of giving my income to support sort of schemes to prevent environmental pollution, I would give it if I definitely knew that A, it was going towards those schemes, and B, if those schemes actually worked and prevented environmental pollution. Unfortunately, I don't think the money would go there, and B, I don't think these schemes work. So if today I had the income to give, I wouldn't, but let's see in the future if I could spare a certain amount, then yeah, I definitely would give it to that cause. Kind of putting money towards kind of stopping environmental pollution in terms of sort of carbon trading or permits, or paying into funds, sort of almost if you take a flight today, you can kind of offset your carbon by paying, say, £20. It's not really solving the problem of the environment, you're just passing it on to someone else to deal with, and I think it's more important for us as kind of a global society to take more responsibility for our own actions. So maybe I would kind of put that same amount of money into kind of developing my own sort of renewable energy for my house, maybe putting it towards installing a solar panel or buying a kind of greener car or something. So doing something for myself rather than giving it to someone else to do without really knowing what they're actually going to do with it. I think it's a better way of doing things. I think the world is a finite resource, and I do think that we have, as the amount of people that live on it, kind of reached or are reaching its maximum. And I think that's only because we've tended to populate in specific parts of the world. I think if you spread us all out evenly around the world, then there'd be no problem at all. And if resources were available as evenly, then again there'd be no problem. But the way that we have chosen to live our lives has made the planet much smaller than it actually is. So yeah, we are facing a problem, but I don't think it's a case of let's stop population growth. I think we need to rethink the way we manage, the way we allocate resources, and the way that we kind of choose to live our lives. I think when humans kind of interact with nature, history and evidence has shown that sometimes, and most of the times, we cause disastrous kind of consequences. But I think it's a case of us interacting with nature without understanding how powerful nature is or how complex nature is. When there are cases when we do interact with nature and we kind of do it in harmony, especially sort of hundreds and thousands of years ago, we lived with nature and we understood what nature was about and how fragile and important it was. And I think now we take it for granted and assume because we are the kind of developed species, we're better than nature, and I don't think we ever are. And I think we need to learn to live with nature rather than either A, fight it or try and kind of destroy nature, which is unfortunately what some people choose to do. I think humans and kind of our knowledge and capacity will kind of make the world survive and make us all kind of stay here. And the problem isn't that we don't have the knowledge or the technology to develop things or make the world a better place. I think it's just there are a minority of individuals who are preventing this from taking place and have been for many years, especially in Western Europe and kind of America and places like that. I think we need to show that as a people we can convince government, we can convince industry, that we have all the tools, we have the people. It's just a question of, it's no longer a question of profits and money, winning an election. There's far more to it. It's about survival of us and the survival of nature. And if you can align kind of winning an election and making profits at the same time, then yeah, brilliant. But I think something's got to give, and I think those will be the things that we have to convince people that aren't as important as saving the planet, as it were. The strength of nature versus sort of the development of industry and the kind of forces that we put on nature, it's difficult to say. I think no one really understands fully how nature is able to cope with everything that's thrown at it. I mean, we are at the moment putting the most strain on it than it's ever had. And I don't think we fully understand if it can or can't cope. But I think evidence has shown that it can't. I think we're putting far more on it than has ever been put on, or at just a much greater intensity. But nature always fights back in its own way, and I think it is fighting back. We are seeing more sort of kind of natural disasters happening, hurricanes, and sort of kind of torrential extreme weather. And I think that is nature's way of coping, but it's not necessarily the way we want nature to react, and it's sort of sending us into a panic. So I think we need to be careful about what we do and kind of see that nature is violent when you look at nature as a person. If it's not being treated well, it will react violently, almost as if an individual's not being treated well. They will react irrationally and to some extent violently. So it's a strange kind of simile, but I think it works. I don't think humans were meant to rule over nature. I think humans were put here by science or by God, whatever you believe in, to kind of work with nature, to be another kind of asset to nature. I think we're all part of the same world. We all kind of live off each other. We live off nature. Nature depends on us as well to a certain degree. And I think we were maybe designed, the hope was always that we should manage nature, look after nature, understand it, and kind of almost encourage nature and encourage it to develop us further as a race and as a species. That was my perception of it. Whether or not it's how the people who do rule in the world, like politicians, chairmen of companies, see things is another question. But hopefully with time and the way the world is changing, and I think the world needs kind of global stewards, as it were, and hopefully these people will now change and see that we need to manage not only the people, but everything in the world. I think if we carry on the way we are, or have been for the last kind of decade or so, I think nature and the kind of ecological kind of surroundings will face a catastrophe. I don't think it will be quite as extreme as you see in kind of Hollywood films, it all happening on one day, but I think it will be gradual, and I think certain people around the world will be affected by it more. And I think the strange thing is, for example, in the UK, London and the South East will get flooded and will cease to exist. But then other parts of the world will become hotter, and it will be gradual, but the effects will start happening very early. I think you've got to realise that humans are clever, and once they realise there's some change that's going to affect their lives, they will start moving around. And I think whilst Hollywood pictures have been kind of incorrect with their kind of catastrophic portrayal of kind of climate change and catastrophe, I think there will be issues with famine, war, and sort of loss of life on a scale that we can't really fully understand right now. But if it's going to be gradual, we have the power to change it also, and we've just got to react at the right time, and I think the time is sort of now. It's the best time to do it.